Welcome to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Jacqui Button in the lower square. In the right-hand square, we have Lorraine Hughes. They are Jack and Laws. This is a very special episode as I'll be interviewing these two lovely ladies who do a great blog and have a book out. We'll talk about the book in a little bit. But before we do anything else, I have to welcome them both to the show. First, Lorraine, thank you so much for joining your co-writer here on the show today. How you doing?
Really well. Absolutely delighted to be here. I mean, what a wonderful thing to be talking about Fulham on a Sunday afternoon, which is fantastic, what we like to do, and particularly when there's been a gap for us after the Euros.
That's right.
Just before, sort of the pre-season's here, but we'll be going along to see Charlton in the friendly next week. So it's great. So thanks for having us.
I'm happy to have the two of you on. I look forward to speaking with you. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We'll talk about the two of you. And then later on, we will get your thoughts because we do have some news to talk about. We actually have some signings. Yes, we have some signings. And I'm curious your view on those signings. I'm now going to go to Jacqui. Jacqui, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks, Ross. I mean, we've both been listening to Cottage Talk for as long as you've been doing it. So to be on here with the man himself is fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that, Jacqui. And I just want to mention to anyone watching live, if you have a question for either one, please feel free to share. I hope to share a couple of questions for the ladies as we go on in the show. Okay. So what I thought I would start with the ladies is really to get their stories, how they became Fulham supporters, how they became friends, everything to do with the two of them. So, Lorraine, I'm going to start with you. Give me your Fulham story.
I think I'm not sure of the exact date, to be honest, but I've always loved football. I've loved everything about it: the passion, the highs, the lows, the camaraderie, the community, all aspects of it. And I've always basically supported my local team so my local team when I was young was actually Luton Town, because that was the nearest club to me. Okay. And used to sort of go along, and they had some, they were in the old First Division, some fantastic matches, some quite scary matches when hooliganism was still alive and well in the UK. Right. It was a, it had all the attributes of a good local community team with a lot of the highs and lows that went with it. And when I moved to London, when I was sort of like grown up and started my first sort of like job, I moved to Hammersmith, and there was never any question of which team I would go towards in the vicinity, because we are blessed to have 3 teams within the borough. It's Chelsea, right, QPR, and obviously our beloved Fulham. And there was no question in that it was never going to be a big club, because that's not what I was about, and I just love seeing live football. And the Cottage is just such an amazing place that it sort of lures you there. And so that was probably in around the sort of 2000 mark, so 20 odd years ago. And so it was still standing at the terraces at the Putney end, and and that was it was just everything I wanted. I even went to Loftus Road. I know lots of Fulham fans will be thinking, oh, how dare you have done that? But I was a bit naive then. I didn't really realise that there was this, that it wasn't necessarily the done thing. But, so I saw them at Loftus Road. And once again, a good local ground, Loftus Road, and we won't say anything about the team, but as the ground goes, there's still a lot to sort of like to commend it. And then that was it. And so forevermore. So for good 20 odd years, Fulham's in my heart. I still look out for the Luton Town results, and obviously we're going to be playing them again next season, unfortunately. So that's it, really.
What's funny, and I'll just share this. I watched a movie last year called Blinded by the Light. And it made me think of Luton Town, because the backdrop of the movie takes place in Luton. And I just find that interesting. What I also find interesting that you mentioned, and it's actually something that drew me to Fulham, Craven Cottage. that the mystique of Craven Cottage is something that actually brought me to it, because I can relate to it here in the Boston area with Fenway Park. It's similar. It's the history. It's the family atmosphere that both have. And Fulham fans don't know this. I actually tried to be a Chelsea supporter. My father grew up in Chelsea, Massachusetts. Thank God that never took, because it didn't fit my personality. Like you, Lorraine, it felt right. Fulham felt right. Chelsea never felt right. Fulham felt right. But like you, Craven Cottage played a huge role. And again, I've been now to Craven Cottage only twice, but it's that family atmosphere. I don't think we can undersell how important that is. No,
without a doubt. I think it has a reverential feel, and everyone talks about it, because it's fairly well known that any other London club, or even not just London clubs, that the away supporters love coming to the Cottage, because it's a traditional ground, obviously the riverside setting, and just the closeness and the connection to the players on the pitch. That I've never met any football fan that can visit, can go and see their team play live, that doesn't love going to the Cottage. So it's not even just for Fulham fans, it's for football lovers.
Okay, excellent. All right, Jacqui, I'm going to go to you now, and I want to get your full story. And what's interesting is that you and I have been friends on Twitter probably since I joined Twitter. So, and I just found out last week that you are Jack of Jack and Lots, which is actually a Goldman in itself. So share me your full story and how you guys also met.
Okay, so I grew up in Bath, which is a rugby town, and everybody supported rugby, but I liked football. And so in the 70s, when you were growing up in England, the team that was always on the telly was Liverpool. So to the extent that I was allowed to follow football, it was Liverpool you always saw, and Kenny Dalglish was playing then, and he was an amazing player. But obviously Liverpool definitely didn't take. I sort of carried on with my part-time interest in football whilst everyone else around me liked the egg-chasing thing.
Right.
Until I came to London to university when I was 18. And then I was able to shop around a bit. And I, like you, tried Chelsea, didn't work. Tried West Ham, liked West Ham, still have a bit of a soft spot for West Ham. This was obviously in the old stadium, which was a fantastic stadium, brilliant atmosphere, but it wasn't right. Shortly after I started work, I met Lorraine through work, and she said, "Oh, if you like football, you should come to Fulham with me." So I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll give that a go." So one Saturday, we met up at Hammersmith for the first time of many occasions, bought our cappuccinos and walked down the river and went into Craven Cottage. And literally within minutes, I was sold, and that was it. I was convinced. It was my team. Craven Cottage was my second home. And it really was. It's exactly as you were saying. It's all about the Cottage. And I cannot wait to get back to the Cottage next week. So yeah, it's all about the Cottage for me.
That's great. And I love the fact that that's how you two connected. You were friends, and then you became friends at supporting the team that now you both love. It's great. So let's now talk about, and Lorraine, I'll go to you. Let's talk about the blog. Before we get in and talking about the book, I want to get your thoughts on starting a blog, which again is a very popular blog, and I read it all the time. You guys do an excellent job. It's actually needed. It's so well written. Let's talk about the idea of the two of you doing a blog together and your thoughts on doing the blog and your enjoyment out of it.
I can still remember the day that we decided to do it, because there'd been, I think, a lead up to it, but without knowing what the outcome was going to be. And that, every match we'd go to would obviously have the sort of post-match review, would be sort of talking about the play, talking about obviously the score line, talking about the sort of the referee's decision, talking about the crowd, talking about funny incidents, and this was a sort of an ongoing thing, and then one time we were in the pub. We used to go to the Old Suffolk Punch all the time, but we'd go to different places. But that was our sort of like favoured one. And actually, my husband came along, and we were talking, and he said, "Why don't you two guys write a blog?" And we sort of went, "Yeah, I suppose we could." So he probably was sort of the catalyst, although it had been, I think, sort of brewing for quite a while. And then we had a discussion as to what would you include in this blog. And we, by our own admission, are not stats geeks. We'd like, you look at the possession rates, you look at the how many sort of passes inside the box or whatever it is, but that's not really where we're about. We're about the more holistic thing, about the whole getting to the ground, the post-match deduction and enjoyment, but also just the sort of the feelings of the crowd, or seeing some like Chris Martin mooning at the crowd or whatever, the things that aren't necessarily captured because he's just was proving himself like to not be a dedicated ex-Fulham player or whatever. So we wanted to capture the whole thing, and obviously just the thing about seeing a football match is just the intensity, the pace, and the skill levels that happen in front of your eyes. And quite often you miss a lot because you don't get an action replay. So you're trying to sort of like convey all of that. And we very much wanted it to be not another number of passes, possession rates in different parts of the field, all of those things. We were just thinking, no, it's just more a fan experience that most people can relate to. And what we also were conscious of is there are so many fans that can't go to the Cottage, and trying to convey that whole match day experience in a much broader, not just focus on the match and the stats way.
See, I'm glad that you said that. I was just about to say that to you, that what I get out of your blog is exactly that, because I'm not there. I am so far away, and I can read other people write about the match. Like you said, it could be more stats based. It could be just there's nothing to it, just basic information on the game. You bring the fan experience to it. That to me, what makes your blog, both of you, what makes it different and makes it unique and very important for me, because it makes me feel like I was there with you. And that's the best thing I could say to this blog for you guys, is that I feel when I read it, I was there with you. And that's the highest compliment I can give you. And that's why it's so valuable that the two of you have started this. And I love your blog, and it's just a great thing. And I want to go back to you, Jacqui. I want to get your thoughts on what we're talking about. And do you agree with my sentiment on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really good to hear that, because that is what we try to convey. It's the whole day's experience. I mean, for me, I now live outside of London, not anywhere near as far as you do, but, so the match day experience is a whole day. It's going to the station. It's buying my first coffee at the station. It's getting the train to London. It's buying another coffee. You will all have gathered that we drink quite a lot of coffee and quite a lot of wine between the two of us. But we really wanted to convey that atmosphere of, arriving at the ground, and you're walking down Stevenage Road, and you're surrounded by people, and people sometimes start singing, and they're talking about the players, and they're talking about the match, and that atmosphere, it starts building before you've even got there. And then, you squeeze through the turnstiles, and someone always has lost their ticket, or, gets a bit stuck, or someone's searching someone's bag, and, there's this big sort of melee just inside the turnstiles. And then you climb up the steps, and then you're in the Hammersmith end, and the pitch is there in front of you. And we just want to convey that to people who aren't as lucky as us and can't go all the time. So it's about that as much as the players. And as Loz says, that there's other people who do the stats and all that kind of thing really, really well. So there's just no point in us concentrating on that. But we really enjoy it. It's a big part of our match day experience as well, and about what we want to say to people and get people to enjoy it and get people involved. And it's taken on a life of its own, to be honest, since that day in the pub, which I remember very clearly as well. It's become an almost a separate entity it's the blog.
Right. And let's now talk about my favorite part of your blog post, Random Musings. Let's talk about this, Jacqui.
Okay, so the Random Musings, I have to admit, I'm a big X-Files fan, certainly back in the day. And I used to read an X-Files blog, and that had a section called Random Musings. And that's where I got the idea from. And so, you know, the Random Musings section of our blog is the opposition kit, it's a dodgy hairstyle, it's just little random things that happen that, again, when you're in a crowd, you notice, and that you don't always notice on the TV. So, you know, it's good that you like that, and I think other people
I love it.
And it makes people smile. So, yeah, we'll be sticking with the Random Musings, don't worry.
Okay, fantastic. All right, ladies, let's now talk about the book. And Lorraine, I'll go to you. So let's talk about how the two of you decided you wanted to write this book, Crossing the Line. And it sounds like you already have another one already in the works. But let's talk about Crossing the Line and how it became about that you decided, let's write a book. I
think, once again, it's almost like a natural progression from the blog, or it felt like it. It wasn't sort of a massive leap, even though it's quite different in terms of the extent of time and work it involves. So it's much more mammoth in that sense. But I think we both love Fulham, and we've really been quite blown away by the real positive feedback that we've had on the blog, and we just thought it's that there don't seem to be many football related novels out there. I mean, no. There's hardly anything. Steve Bruce wrote some really bad ones in the past that were absolutely castigated for being so bad, but in reality there's very few, and we just thought, but it's something that so many people love, so why wouldn't you think about doing something around that? And then we did, so we started to plan it probably about think about plot lines about 2 years ago. So these things always have long gestation periods. It's an inevitability. If you're going to do it right, you can't rush it. And so we started planning it about 2 years ago in terms of the plot lines, and it wasn't until January 2020 that we started to actually plan it out, plot line by plot line and characters, and start to develop it and flesh it out as a book plan. And then we started writing, and obviously the pandemic started in the UK anyway, and it really the lockdown hit in March 2020, and so pretty much from the beginning we had to do the book planning remotely, and so Jacqui and I were just Zooming, and we also needed to make sure that we were both writing different elements, and they obviously have to integrate and flow, and the plots have to flow through. So we would, rather than the 3 o'clock when we'd be going down to the match, would use all the Saturdays for book discussion. And so we've needed to be just 2 authors on any book needs masses and extensive collaboration, and obviously we needed that. So we spent a lot of time discussing, debating, reading each other's text, and then trying to integrate. So so it's taken us about a year and a half to bring it to fruition, and it's been, we've learned an awful lot. We really have, and we've had some fantastic help along the way. But we're happy that we've got something to show for it that hopefully people will like.
Okay. Before I go to Jacqui, please tell everyone a couple things. I actually had a request, and I'm sorry that I've not shared this. Tell everyone how that they can find your blog. Let's start there. Over to you, Lorraine.
Jacqui, are you better on this in terms of the address?
Okay. Sure.
So the blog is on Twitter. Our Twitter account is @JackandLoz. The most recent blog is usually our pinned tweet. Our pinned tweet at the moment, it obviously relates to the book, but once we start getting back into the season, our pinned tweet will be the most recent blog. We also have a website, which is Jack and Loz. Is it jackandloz.com or jackandloz.co.uk?
Both.
Yep.
Both. We bought 2 websites. So you can find the historic blogs on there. But yeah, each blog is posted on Twitter after each match.
Okay, great. So Jacqui, let's now talk about the book and just give everyone an overall synopsis of the story, and then we'll tell everyone how that they can actually get the book.
So the story is a fictional Fulham team's FA Cup campaign from the 3rd round onwards, and obviously we won't give too much away as to onwards.
Don't give too much away.
No. Interestingly, in this fictional season, Fulham are a championship team again. So we were perhaps authors of our own destiny when we were writing about this championship season during our Premiership season. But so we've got the added pressure on the manager and the players of having to get promoted, which leads to quite a lot of tension, quite a lot of drama. There's quite a lot of mishaps. There's some intrigue. There's some scandal, all sort of thrown in together against the backdrop of a London mayoral election year, which is quite a big thing in London.
Wow.
Again, obviously, totally fictional candidates and fictional campaigns, but real issues. You know, we wanted to make grassroots football an issue because it's something that we're into. And one of our candidates is very into the environment, things like that. Of our football players, you know, one's got mental health issues because that's something else that we believe in very strongly. So it's a book of 2 themes, really, football and politics sort of twining together, with hopefully a storyline people find interesting, hopefully some compelling characters, and a bit of a showdown at the end.
Wow, very interesting. And back over to you, Lorraine. It's funny because one of my co-hosts, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, is Craig Coben. His brother is Harlan Coben. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. It sounds something that Harlan Coben would write. So it's very interesting. So what has been so far, you know, again, you published the book. We're going to tell everyone in just a second how that they can get the book. But what has been, you know, and again, you can go to your website, you can see some of the responses. What has been the best thing about writing the book for you?
I think that the feedback has just been really, really good. I think just because whilst it's written in the 3rd person, there are 2 fans, and they are a Jack and Loz in the book, which are alter egos, which are basically give the fans perspective. So whilst there's always sort of pressure on the fictional Fulham owner to sell because he's got business issues, and guess what? There's people sniffing around the cottage to redevelop it, which is why they might want to get a complicit mayor to push through some development decisions that might not be for the fans' benefit. There's also a rival local club that's been taken over by a very rich owner and has changed the name because they can, and he's not so worried about the legacy fans' view because he's worried about winning trophies and putting the money in and just making sure that his profile and his investments suit him and his business interests. So there's all of these themes which any sports fan, football fan will be very familiar with, and it's all woven into the plot. But the alter egos of Jack and Loz in the book, that give the first-hand account from a fan's perspective that quite frankly don't have much of a clue, but they end up getting sort of behind the scenes and actually quite involved. It's very there's some very light-hearted elements. So it's, whilst the themes might be quite serious in terms of a lot of people with a lot of money not necessarily having fans at heart, there's also and the pressures on the players that, you know, they're not robots. You know, they have expectations and they might be brilliant, but, you know, it doesn't mean that they're automatons and then to conform every day at a drop of a hat. You know, they've got, you know, they're just ups and downs like anybody else, and sometimes a lot more because of the pressure on them. But it's meant to be not too serious when push comes to shove. It's a fictional account on this FA Cup campaign, and just with a sort of, and there's hopefully quite a few funny moments in there that just it's a light read overall, even though some of the themes are they're real.
Okay, very interesting. And I'm not a big reader, but you know what? I'm going to get your book. I can't wait to actually read your book. I don't read that much. My family makes fun of me that I really don't, but you guys have now sold me on reading your book. I will mention this, that, it's funny because while you're saying this, I'm thinking about a couple of shows I have watched in the past. I can't believe we're going to say it's Footballers' Wives, Dream Team. I've actually watched these things, and this doesn't go to that extreme. But, again, if you're interested in story, I think there should be more stories with football being interwoven. And I love the fact that you guys have done this, Lorraine. But most importantly, tell everyone how that they can get the book.
Well, you can get it on good old Amazon. So that is just basically the best place to be able to buy books. And so obviously in the UK it's amazon.co.uk or amazon.com. It's called Crossing the Line, and it's joint authored, so it's L. Hughes and J. Button. And hopefully it should come up. There's quite a few books with that line. Go figure. We're not that original, but it suited us in terms of politics and the football, and but it's not a wholly original title. We are confessing that up straight away, because you'll find quite a few. So you might have to dig around a bit, but essentially it should be up there. And particularly if you put in sort of Fulham Football Club or soccer, then that will come up. Okay. And there's a link on our website. If you go to jackandloz.com, there's a link on the website that will take you straight through there as well.
Okay, I would highly recommend, if you're a Fulham supporter, get in the book, read the book, and please let Jacqui and Lorraine know what you think of the book. And so far, the feedback that they're getting has been fantastic. So, guys, congratulations on that. But I'm having you on for another reason. We have some stuff to talk about with Fulham. So coming up next, we're going to talk Fulham with the ladies. Okay, ladies, let's now talk about Fulham. And Jacqui, I'm going to go to you first. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. We'll talk about the signings in just a bit. But I want to get your thoughts. First of all, we've had a change as who is the Fulham head coach. If you want to talk about Scott Parker's departure, feel free to. But I want to get your thoughts. What was going through your mind when they brought in Marco Silva?
So we were both, well, I certainly was pleasantly surprised. I think that we'd very much been linked with both Steve Cooper and Chris Wilder.
This is true.
Both very solid championship managers, especially Chris Wilder. And I think, you know what you're going to get with people like that. They know what they're doing in the championship. They know how to manage a championship team. But maybe that's sort of what they're best at. Maybe that's their level. Maybe they are good up to a point, but perhaps they weren't really what we were looking for. Marco Silva, a bit of an unknown quantity, obviously hasn't managed in the championship before, has had some success in England before, but not obviously as much as some people, but obviously had massive success in Portugal. So again, knows what he's doing as a manager. Seems to come over really well. I thought his first interview in particular seems really approachable, friendly, nice guy, would be a nice guy to work for, you'd hope. Likes to play attacking football. What's not to like? So, let's see what happens.
Very interesting. And Lorraine, I want to get your thoughts on it. And I like what Jacqui just shared, because his track record is a little spotty, but I found something interesting about his track record, and that's this. His teams have generally started strong. As long as I followed Fulham, they've always started terribly. So to me, this is a huge plus just for that his teams tend to start fairly strong. So what was going through your mind when they signed Silva? Because again, the track record isn't in the championship, but it is in the Premier League. And if we're thinking long term, to have a manager that has the experience in the Premier League, I think is important. Nothing against the other managers, as Jacqui said, they were solid managers in their own right. But this gentleman has all this experience in the Premier League, to the point where he went from Hull to Watford, and then Everton wanted him. So he kept going up. Even though it didn't work out, his trajectory was heading upwards. And again, his first season at Everton was fairly good. So what are your thoughts about Marco Silva?
I'm pleasantly surprised. I think he could be a very good fit for the club, and I think we find that the club can suit some players, some managers, like Mitro when he first came. Newcastle, difficult to handle, and yet he thrived at Fulham, and I can see it potentially being a really good place for him. And I'm really pleased that we didn't go for the same old, and the whole sort of like merry-go-round.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and then we always say we like having a sort of like a slightly suave manager at Fulham. It goes with the image. I think it's good. What we didn't say, Russ, is that in our book with our fictional manager, he is called Marco Marriage. And so
wow.
I know, like we're
how crazy is that?
It is crazy because he's a very the Marco Marriage in our book is an ambitious, very intelligent, very
okay. Do you guys know something or?
if we go on a good FA Cup campaign, I tell you, we are giving up our professions and becoming like fortune tellers. But the marker in the book is a guy that doesn't necessarily play by the rules. So that's where hopefully they will end in terms of any similarities. But Marco Silva, it is a bit of a checkered past, but I really think that the fans are desperate for a bit of attacking play.
Totally agree.
I mean, I wanted Scott to work. I really, it's all the heart and head stuff, and and Scott is so he was quite an intense guy, but he was Fulham player. We wanted it to work, and it's a shame it didn't. And I think there's obviously a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we have no idea about. But on the basis, but the football was getting quite difficult to watch because it was
totally agree.
And the whole Mitro thing, and it was just so I think it was probably better for all that it was sort of a split in the way that's happened, and a bit of fresh blood for the players. Hopefully be good for Cav, Portuguese Luabo Morte back, yay, that's good. And so hopefully and Mitro, him and Scott don't have a clue what went on, but he's staying, and I think that is great for us. That is really, really good. If we can get Mitro back on fire, then we're all going to be happy.
Totally agree. I want to go back over to you, Jacqui, because Lorraine just brought up a good point. How much of a factor of Silva coming was the fact that Boa Morte is coming with him? Did that sell you? The fact that he's coming back?
Totally. I mean, what Fulham fan doesn't love Louis Boa Morte? He was a great player for us, big character, great on the field, great captain off it as well. To have him back as a coach, he's obviously done coaching both with Marco Silva and I think on his own as well, or at least with other people as well. So he's now got a bit of a track record of his own as a coach. He must be so looking forward to getting stuck in back at the Cottage. The reception he's going to get is just going to be amazing. I think he certainly adds to Marco's credibility, and again makes it even more exciting what we're going to see.
Okay, excellent. All right, back over to you, Lorraine. Let's talk about a departure for Fulham. We learned this yesterday as well. I want to get your thoughts on Stefan Johansson leaving for QPR. Yikes. But what's interesting about this, and I want to get your thoughts. I'm going to share my thoughts on Johansson, Mcdonald, and Kearney. I will always love the three of them together in their prime. Johansson showed me that unfortunately he is not a Premier League player. And if we have ambitions to be a Premier League team again, I didn't see a short-term fit. So I'm fine with him going. Am I fine with him going to QPR? Probably not. But I will always have fond memories of Stefan Johansson. What are your thoughts about this, Lorraine? And then I'll go back to Jacqui.
I think I'm with you totally, Russ. I mean, he wouldn't get in a Premier League side. He just wouldn't. He is everything that sort of the Fulham team embodies, just in terms of, I think I read someone's tweet today saying that he's exactly who you want on the field, that he when things aren't going right, he is there and he's giving his all, and he's giving his body, soul, mind, everything into it. And then when things are going well, he wants it as much as the fans. There's no detachment at all. So he is, I think, no Fulham fan will begrudge him keeping up getting gameplay and keeping his career going. The QPR thing, he's not the first to go there. I mean, Bobby Zamora, Aaron Hughes. I mean, like there's a number that have gone in that direction, and it's back to there being, the clubs in close proximity. They've got houses, they've got kids at school. It's you can get for a footballer's life. It must be. Everyone sort of sees all the, fast cars and glamorous lifestyle, but there is upheaval as well. And there's, especially if they are being shoved from here to there or wherever, and then their sporting lives can be quite short. So you get that they want to stay in London, they want to be nearby, they don't want to mess the family around. And QPR are a good, solid club, as much as it pains me to say it, but it's, so for him, you think it makes sense. And so good luck to him, and thanks for his contribution, because you can't fault that.
No, you definitely can. And back over to you, Jacqui. It's a good point, because for Johansson, it makes perfect sense. He doesn't have to leave. He could still stay in London, and it's probably a good location for him. It stings a little bit, but as Lorraine said, it's not the first time we've seen Fulham players go to QPR. So what are your thoughts about Johansson?
Yeah, I'm sad to see him go. I mean, the period you were alluding to of him and Tom and Kevin being what we call the three midfield musketeers, but they were absolutely terrific together. They were probably the best midfield in the league, certainly for one season at least. But, Kevin's gone again. We really wish him the best with his health as well as his future career. So, these players are coming to the end of their careers now anyway. Stefan's 30. We sold him. We've got some money for him, albeit not loads. It's not a bad deal. Would he have played that much for us this season? Probably not. He obviously enjoyed his loan spell at QPR. And, like we're all saying, it's a sensible move for him. And, obviously we don't want him to score against us or anything, but we all wish him well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I wish him well. And, again, it makes sense for him. And I'll always think fondly of Stefan Johansson. Like I mentioned, Jacqui, the three of them together. And I also want to mention Kevin Mcdonald, who, again, is no longer with Fulham. He was to this day, he'll be one of my favorite players. My favorite player is Danny Murphy of all time. Kevin McDonald's not that far behind. I love Kevin McDonald. True leader on the pitch. He was a true captain on the pitch. I think the three of us will agree on that. And I think Fulham have missed his leadership since he hasn't been around. So I want to include Kevin McDonald in that discussion as well. Okay, ladies, let's now talk about some signings. We actually have some good news. We have some signings. We're going to end talking about Harry Wilson, but I was kind of taken aback by this signing, Lorraine. And again, what's interesting about this goalkeeper comes from Tottenham, and I'm going to try to say his name, Paulo Gazzaniga. I could be wrong. That wouldn't be the first goal that I made. But again, a goalkeeper that is coming from one of the top clubs in the Premier League. Again, it's on a free. There's really low risk. You have Marcus Bettinelli leaving. So for me, this is just my feelings on it. Possible competition here. It's good for Marek Rodak's development. What are your thoughts about bringing in a goalkeeper with this experience?
Well, hopefully he'll be good with that pedigree, you would like to think. I feel sorry for Rodak, but you can't really feel sorry. It's not about just trying to be everyone's best friend, is it, if you're running a club and you're managing it? And but Rodak had the backseat in the Premier League, and quite frankly, Areola was absolutely fantastic. He was one of our standout players, probably the best one, and we still got relegated with Areola in goal. So that just goes to show the competition in the Premier League. But Areola was fantastic, and obviously Rodak played a couple of matches just before the end, and he did well. But and I think he's an excellent goalie, but not of Areola's standard. So and I think no matter how much you like Rodak, you could see the difference. Areola was definitely a big cut above. So Gazzaniga, I saw a picture of him on the website with
Yep.
Wilson, and there's about 3 foot difference between them in terms of height. I don't know how tall he is, but he looks like a man mountain. So that's good. And Silva says he wants competition for all the places, and you need 2 good goalies. It seems that the intent is fairly clearly get back up, and it has to be by automatics. And there's no good faffing about in the playoffs, because that's just we've been there twice now in just a few years. So it has to be automatics. So I think it makes sense, particularly with Areola, unsurprisingly, not staying with us. He was a loanee and no chance of him staying.
Lorraine, you just brought up a good point, and I don't think we talk enough about this. The 2 seasons we recently went up, were through the playoffs. I was at the final at Wembley, fantastic. But I think it also hampered Fulham by going up that way instead of the automatic promotion. I think they desperately need it. I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing these signings. Potentially, you're also seeing a look into the future that they have this goalkeeper that maybe could play in the Premier League as well and push Rodak and get the most out of Rodak. I want to go back over to you, Jacqui. I want to get your thoughts about what we're talking about with this goalkeeper. And do you see what Lorraine is saying, that this could also be a sign that it really is make or break again for probably the 3rd time? Fulham desperately need to get back in the Premier League, but maybe this time they understand it. Definitely, they probably understood it then. They definitely have to be in one of the 2 positions. And I think maybe some of these signings are showing us that that's where their intent is.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Gazzaniga himself, he's obviously got a lot of experience. He's obviously very good. He's obviously very tall.
6'5".
Wow.
Oh,
Thank you, Chris, by the way.
Is he coming in as number 1? Is he coming in as number 2? We don't know. Maybe even Marco Silva doesn't know yet. Maybe it really is a straight shootout between them. Let's see who's best. Let's see who works best with the defense. Maybe we won't know for a couple of games. But yeah, I mean, Rodak was great for us in the championship last time around. And it will be a shame if he's not number 1. But as Lorraine says, we're not here to make friends with goalkeepers. We're here to promote him. And if Gazzaniga's the best, then he's the one we need. Going back to automatic promotion, absolutely 100% agree with that. And in fact, in our book, which we keep quoting, pretty much the same discussion goes on quite early on. Our fictional owner is telling the manager only automatic promotion will do. And that comes up several times. And one of our friends who proofread the book for us said, why do you keep on about automatic promotion? And we had to say, look, it is really important. It does really make a difference. Yes, the day out at Wembley, which you referred to, I mean, it's literally one of the best days of my life. But I don't want another trip to Wembley.
No, neither do I.
Final again, we need to come first or second. Hopefully we're putting together a team that can do that.
Right. And to that point, Jacqui, and both of you know this, the time that Fulham had to recruit and build a new team, especially last season, was so small. And part of it was because they went up via the playoff final. And like I said, great moments. I can just tell you, I watch over and over them beating Brentford. I enjoy every moment of that. and I love every moment of me going. But if I look back at it, I'm like, the fact that we didn't get automatic promotions really has hurt us twice. And it has, because it doesn't give us enough time. We're competing against all these other clubs. They have a head start on us.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give us enough time to plan. And then, listen, Tony Khan, and I'll say his name, he does deserve criticism for making all these signings at the last minute. I agree with all that. But I also think that it did hurt that we have not had that extra time to plan where you don't know what division you're in. But I'm not giving, trust me, I'm going to tell you, I'm not giving a free pass on that. It's just another factor in what has happened with Fulham. I think if they had some more time, maybe things would have been different, or maybe they would have been the same. But I would have liked to. I want to see what happens if they do it via automatic promotion. And I think these 2 signings indicate where their mindset is. I'm talking about the club. So now let's talk about Lorraine. I want to go back over to you. again, we've been hearing some information about Harry Wilson for a couple of weeks now. And I remember I've watched him play several times. I think this is an excellent signing. But let me just preface this. Before we went live, we're getting conflicting information on his deal with Fulham. The reports we were getting from many journalists that were associated with covering Liverpool is that this was a permanent deal and that the payment, the first installment, was going to be deferred until 2022. We are now getting, again, on Twitter, Tom Barclay from The Sun just tweeted out that he is hearing that it's a loan deal with an obligation to buy if they hit certain markers. I'm paraphrasing exactly what the tweet said. So we're getting different information. Regardless, Harry Wilson is a player for us, Lorraine. I think this is, again, if you watched him play and you watched Marco Silva's team, it kind of goes hand in hand. I think this is, it's funny. I was talking to someone off air. I think that Marco Silva had a lot to do with this signing. He talked to the player. I think his influence is all over Harry Wilson becoming a Fulham player. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. So I'd be surprised if he was not here on a permanent deal, not least because the club's website with the video interview of him says, "Oh, you must be fed up being a loanee because you've been, where is it, like Hull, Derby, Bournemouth, whatever." So he's been a serial loanee. So he wants a home. He wants a club, and he's said that he can see that this is a place that he can sort of like grow and develop. So fingers crossed he is here on a permanent deal. Any attacking player is good in my book. So as an attacking midfielder, yes, please. Thank you very much. And he's really good at set pieces as well, which is sort of something we need. So that is really good. So, because our attacking options, we've still got Mitro, but we've got Cav and AK and Bobby. Like they're not. It's defensively we look fairly solid, I think, because we've got Congolo and Tete and obviously Anthony Robinson and. So we're quite strong defensively. So an attacking midfielder is exactly, I think, sort of like what we need, particularly if we can get Mitro sort of back in form. So I think it does, as you say, sort of illustrate, I think, Marco Silva's. I must not call him Marco Maric ever, but Marco Silva's attributes and his game philosophy. And I just think that is really positive, and I think his young guys were mid-20s, something like that.
He's 24, Lorraine.
Perfect. Like he'll just so I think it's a good signing, and we've kept it, unlike every time we go up to the Premier League, because we do it every other year or have done in the last few years. It's people in, people out, and we've kept the core of the team, which is really good. I know Steph Joe's gone and Kevin's no longer with us, but obviously the most of the loanees have gone, but still there is a core there.
The core is still there, Lorraine.
Yeah, and it's capable of having a good season. And I think all the Fulham fans are just thinking, please, just some positive football, attacking football, some goals. I mean, where were the goals last season?
I know.
They were just in such short supply that when we were doing our end of season blog and like we always have a like best goal, and we were like, well, there weren't that many, so which you could name them all because there were so few. So hopefully he'll bring all of that, and fingers crossed he'll be here on a sort of a more permanent basis, particularly if he comes good.
Okay, well, I'm pretty much all done with Parker Ball, so I'm good there. So let's see what Silva Ball can give us, and maybe Harry Wilson can be a part of that. And Jacqui, over to you. I want to get your thoughts on this because, again, I'm glad that Lorraine keeps mentioning this. You guys are going to be there. And I've had several fans say to me, even under Parker, that they wanted to be entertained. Everything I've seen and read about Silva's play is attacking, entertaining football. When I watch this player, Harry Wilson, I've watched him several times, he fits that. So are you excited about him joining Fulham?
Yeah, I think he could be potentially a really good signing. I think what I particularly like about him, even leaving aside the way he plays, is there was a tweet yesterday where I'm guessing there'd been potentially other interest in him, but that he was keen to drop down to the Championship and challenge for promotion. And that's exactly what we want, is somebody who wants to play every week, who wants to play their best, and who wants to help us out, really, and get us back up. And that was reflected in his interview, which we obviously all watched earlier. But yeah, he does seem like an exciting young player. Obviously plays for Wales, which is great. Young, almost coming into his prime. I think that the main thing is, can he combine well with Mitro? I mean, Mitro is so much the key to us getting back up.
It's a great point.
Yeah. We were both saying when we spoke yesterday, actually, that, that photo of Mitro in the ice bath, for a man in an ice bath, he looked extremely happy to be where he was. So let's hope that he's kind of put his unhappiness of last season, however that came about, behind him. He and Marco are forging a great new relationship, and he's about to get back on fire again. And part of Mitro being on fire is people putting the balls into him in the box, because we know that if Mitro gets the ball in the box, he's more likely than not to score. So yeah, it could be fantastic.
Yeah, I really think so too, Jacqui. And do you agree with Lorraine as I do? It's funny because I've had many people say to me, worried about Fulham's team. If you look at it, yes, we do need additions. Defensively solid, but this is a team, if they kept the majority of the team intact and we don't have many players going out, it's good enough to, I want to say, win the league or get second. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, obviously, you need to bear in mind what other teams are doing. Yes, we're going to be pushed very hard by Slab and very hard by Scott. And I think as the season goes on, that kind of three-way battle, which really could be the potential three-way battle at the top, is going to be really, really interesting. And I'm very much looking forward to writing about that. But yeah, we've got a really good team. If no one else leaves and just a couple more attacking players come in, then yeah, it's potentially a league-winning team. Okay,
very good. It's funny, ladies. I have a couple of questions that are just dealing with the situation at hand. I'm going to share this with Colm Bugler. This is an interesting one because this could actually go under something we talked about off air being a controversial topic. So I want to get your thoughts on this. What does Wilson signing mean for the future of Kearney? Is Wilson a better 10 than anywhere else in the midfield? And what's interesting about this is Kearney, I don't think has been at the matches lately. So it's very interesting. And I actually had someone ask me, is it time to move on from Tom Kearney? It's funny because I was watching the play of Harry Wilson. I think he's more of a winger. Could he play a 10? Potentially. But the bigger question is Tom Kearney's future. So what are your thoughts about that, Lorraine? I'll go to you first. Again, he's starting to get up there in age. I love Tom Kearney, but he's very injury prone. Is it time to consider moving on from him? I'm curious your thoughts on
that. Possibly, but I wouldn't go there just yet.
Okay.
I think Tom is still a fan favourite, but I think and that's on the basis that he is loyal and faithful to the club up to a point. We know he's dallied possibly in the past, and that's fair enough. But I think there were matches last season in the Premier League that we really missed him. We missed.
You're 100% right.
And he could have been definitely game changing in some key matches, and I think he can. And even when he started the season, he was looking really good. And it was a shame and that he got injured so early on in the season, and it's a shame that he is injury prone. I'm not a great believer in out with the old, in with the new, because I think that can be a bit naive sometimes, and I do believe in testing people, giving them a chance. So I would like to see him back. I don't think it's an either or with Kearney and Wilson. I think Wilson, from my understanding, he's quite versatile. He plays on the right wing, but he can actually be more central and even on the left. So I don't think it has to be either or. and Greaser, he had some amazing matches last season. He had some bad matches, but Harrison Reed equally, he's brilliant. I think he's been like fantastic throughout the whole season. But I do think we need to be able to sort of like swap players in and out. And like Lamina was good for us last season.
Yeah.
But in terms of us number 10, I think I'd keep Tom and have Wilson, and let's see how we go. So I don't think it's an either or, but that's my view.
Okay, I have to have the two of you back on just to talk football with you. And again, I'm glad that we have you on to talk about the book. But Lorraine, you just brought it there, because I agree with everything you said. I'm glad you brought in the Anguissa situation, talking about Lamina, because when you look at it, you can mix and match with all these players now, because if you're playing a certain opponent, maybe someone plays and someone doesn't. And I think I agree with you. I think Fulham missed Kearney. I'm just asking the question that someone asked me earlier. Is it time to move on from Tom Kearney? Sounds like you don't think it is. I'm curious your view. I don't think it is either. Jacqui, what's your thoughts on it? Are you still good with Tom Kearney playing a role with Fulham this season?
I'm certainly still good with him playing a role. I think, though, that we have to be practical. He's getting on a bit, she says, being nearly 20 years older than him.
Wow, you guys are disagreeing. I love it.
But in footballing terms, he's getting on a bit. And I think the injury that year did really seem to knock him for six. And it does seem to have taken him a long time to come back from that. And, you mentioned Danny Murphy earlier, and I remember him saying towards the end of his career that he'd been very lucky in that he'd always kept himself very fit and had prolonged his career, which I'm sure is true. Tom obviously hasn't been so lucky. And, there must come a time where there's only so much you can do. And I think he definitely still has a role. We love watching him play. His creativity, some of his long passes, some of his assists have been absolutely terrific. And we do miss him when he doesn't play. But I think we do have to start thinking about the fact that there will be a post-Tom era. And, people are going to have to fill the gap. And this season in the Championship might, unfortunately, be the last we see of Tom.
Okay, it's very good. Ladies, this has been great. I want to share one question with you guys. Again, we had a few questions, and before we wrap it up, I definitely want to share this question because it involves going back to Craven Cottage. Let me just change the view for a second. Just give me a second. Maybe this will come in a little bit better. I just want to share this. Let's see if this makes a difference. I have a season ticket for the coming season, yet my wife is hesitant to let me sit in the Putney stand due to COVID pandemic climate. What's your advice? Should I miss the opening few matches of the season until the UK has control of the numbers? Guys, what are your thoughts? First, Lorraine, what do you make of that and the concerns that Kamal has?
I think you need to obviously take your own advice and be as comfortable as you can be. I mean, many the percentage of people that have been double jabbed is high in the UK, but London a bit less so. I think it would be hard for us to say. I think the club will be as responsible as it can be. I actually went to the Fulham-Liverpool match, which was the first match that they had fans in for a while when there was that brief, the 2,000 fans, and it was fantastic.
Oh, teaser. That was a teaser match, yeah.
I know, and it was brilliant, and we should have won, but we
absolutely.
Liverpool got a penalty, but there you go. But it
don't get me started on that, Lorraine. Don't get me started.
It was fantastic to be there. Everyone wore masks. Everyone was spaced going in. People sort of were spread out, but that was before there'd been a big vaccination program.
Yeah.
I think it is going to be a bit trial and error, without being all doom and gloom. I was talking to someone yesterday who'd been double jabbed and caught COVID at Wembley at the England-Italy Euro final. So who knows? I think it's difficult for us to give advice, to be honest, on that, because obviously it's still a risk, and I'm not sure if you have to show your vaccination certificate. I think you have to, or a recent COVID test. I think we have to for the match next week, the pre-season friendly against Charlton. Yeah. So you'd like to think case numbers are going down, but I think until it disappears, there's always going to be a risk with any sort of like gathering.
Yeah, it's a hard one, Jacqui. As I bring you back in here, it is hard because it's funny. I've been totally vaccinated. I actually had COVID, and but I understand Kamal's concern. It's difficult to give advice on that because it's an individual situation. It's a hard one. What are your thoughts about that? Just his concerns in general.
Yeah, I totally get it, because also, of course, it's not just at the ground. It's on the tube, it's on the train, it's on the bus, however you get there. The vaccination program in the UK has been successful, but it's not 100%. In terms of not everybody's being vaccinated, but also we know the vaccine isn't 100% effective. So yeah, it's a worry. And I think it's a situation that clubs will monitor, and that people, you just have to do what you think is right. It will be interesting to see how it works at the friendly. I think that's probably a bit of a trial run in more ways than one, and see how it goes. But yeah, it's a genuine worry still.
Okay, excellent. And I'm sorry, I have to scratch this itch one more time, Lorraine. That Liverpool match still annoys the hell out of me ever since then, because that in no way did they deserve that. And no, they didn't deserve anything from that. The fact that you were there, you didn't deserve to see that, because Fulham deserved all 3 points. I'm sorry, I had to go there on that.
Tell me about it. It was brilliant. The fact there were 2,000 people in the ground, and the atmosphere was absolutely fantastic. Everyone was so happy to be there, and also everyone just felt very lucky to be there because it was a ballot and it was literally a luck of the draw. And from the off, we were brilliant, and that was what was so disappointing about last season. We had such a good spell for a good period of time that I think everyone thought that after a bad start, for all the reasons you said, Russ, late start, it's hard enough trying to do battle in the Premier League going up from the Championship, even if you'll come up as number 1 or 2. But as a playoff final, it's pretty much impossible, and the stats bear that out. But we gave Liverpool a game, and they were not expecting it. They were really not expecting it. And the ball hit AK's arm as he sort of jumped in the wall, and then that was a penalty, which was completely undeserved. And we were absolutely, it was an attacking performance and lots of skill, and we should have won. And there were so many lost points here, there, and everywhere. But even with those lost points, we just petered out. We just like some wounded animal out of the Premier League, and we didn't deserve to be there in the end. So we've got to start afresh.
Okay, I have to share this. This is a friend of mine who's actually a Patriots fan. He's not a Fulham supporter, but he supports all of my shows. He's a Liverpool supporter. No, you're wrong, Chris. You're wrong. Okay, I just had to do that. Sorry. He's a Liverpool supporter. You're wrong, Chris. You're wrong. Anyways, I thank you, Chris, as always, for watching and listening to both of my shows. I really appreciate it. Guys, this has been just such a pleasure doing the show with the two of you. You know what? I'm going to say this right now. I want the two of you back on just to do a show with me again. Please come back again. I really enjoyed it, Lorraine and Jacqui. Please do come back. First, Lorraine, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thanks, Russ. Really lovely to talk to you.
Okay, and Jacqui, thank you so much for doing this. And I'll end with you. Please tell everyone one last time how they can buy the book.
Okay, thank you first of all very much for having us on, Russ, and we would love to come back. Secondly, the book is on Amazon, both as a paperback and a Kindle edition. If you search Crossing the Line, it'll come up. It's a beautiful cover with a lovely cup on the front, so you can't miss it. Thank you. Okay.
And if you guys do another book, and you can, if you want, you can add a character with the name of Russ. I'm not just suggesting it.
Not a baddie, though. A goodie.
A goodie. Exactly. Well, listen, this has been wonderful, and I can't thank my guests enough, Jacqui Button and Lorraine Hughes, for joining me. But it is time to wrap it up. For my two lovely guests, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.